Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to a deep dive into some fascinating source material you've shared with us, all about gold IRAs.
Hmm.
You've given us a great piece here that lays out the landscape. And, well, it immediately brings up a question I think many people might have.
Yeah.
If you're investing in gold for retirement, right, can you use that gold IRA to buy things like, jewelry,
The jewelry question.
or maybe that specific coin you've always wanted, even if it's not just a plain bar?
Right. And the source tackles that head on. It makes it crystal clear. No, you absolutely cannot use a gold IRA to buy jewelry or really most other personal gold items.
Okay, straight answer. Why not?
It highlights that this comes down to very strict IRS rules, rules that define what's actually permissible within these specific retirement accounts.
Fascinating. Because, when we think gold, we often do think of jewelry, maybe collectible.
Here, naturally.
But this deep dive, guided by your source material, it's going to show us that a gold IRA is a very specific tool, governed by a tight set of rules.
That's right.
We'll dive into exactly what is allowed, where it must be stored, the risks the source points out, and maybe most importantly, how this type of investment fits into the broader strategy of diversification, all drawn directly from the text you gave us.
Sounds good.
So let's start with the basics laid out in the source. What exactly is a gold IRA? What's its fundamental purpose here?
Okay. The source defines it as a self-directed individual retirement account, an IRA, but one that lets you invest in physical precious metals. Primarily gold, but sometimes others too.
Physical. So not like a gold stock or ETF.
Exactly. Unlike a traditional IRA holding stocks and bonds, this is about tangible assets. Its purpose, as highlighted here, is mainly as a tool for, portfolio diversification and retirement planning.
Right.
It's really just a way to hold physical gold within the tax structure of an IRA.
Okay, so it's about getting actual physical gold into your retirement bucket, basically.
You got it.
And that brings us right back to the initial, maybe surprising point. Why are personal items like jewelry so definitively out?
Yeah, the source is very specific about the IRS rules on this. Jewelry is prohibited, period. Doesn't matter how much gold is in it.
Wow. Okay.
The core reason given, jewelry just doesn't meet the IRS's strict requirements for purity and form.
Purity and form.
Right. These rules exist to make sure that the assets held are easily tradable and maintain a consistent, verifiable value. That's different from the value we might place on, say, craftsmanship or aesthetics in jewelry.
Sure, the artistic value versus the metal value.
Exactly. The source also lists other non-permissible items like certain collectible coins or really any metal item that doesn't meet the required purity standards. It's all about keeping the assets in a highly standardized investment-grade form.
So it's not just any gold. It has to be very specific investment-grade gold. What forms are acceptable then, according to this material? What are the specific requirements?
Well, the material provides clear criteria. For gold bars, they need to be at least 99.5% pure. That's 0.995 fine.
Pretty pure.
Very pure. For gold coins, the general standard is also 99.5% purity. Now, here's where it gets slightly nuanced, as the source points out. There's a specific exception for the American Gold Eagle coin. That one's allowed at 91.67% purity.
Interesting. Any reason why, does the source say?
It doesn't elaborate on the why for that specific coin in the provided text, just notes the exception. It also lists other approved coins like the Canadian Gold Maple Leaf, the Australian Gold Nugget, and the Austrian Gold Philharmonic, which typically do meet that higher 99.5% standard.
Got it.
The key takeaway from the source is really the emphasis on high purity and these specific recognized forms. It ensures liquidity and value consistency.
This is where the practical side comes in. Once you've acquired these specific approved forms of gold or maybe other precious metals, where do they actually live?
Right.
Can you decide, okay, I'll keep this in my personal safe or maybe a bank deposit box?
Yeah, this is a critical point the source really stresses. No, absolutely not. You cannot keep the gold at home or in a personal safe deposit box tied just to you.
Really? So where does it go?
It must be stored in an IRS-approved depository.
An approved depository?
Yes.
Oh.
The source explains that this mandatory third-party storage is required to maintain the integrity and the verifiable value of the assets within the IRA.
Ah, I see.
Think of it as an extra layer of security and authentication required by the IRS for these types of accounts. It ensures the asset is genuinely held for retirement purposes, not for, personal access or use.
That makes sense. It keeps a clear line between personal stuff and retirement assets.
Exactly.
Now, investing, well, it always comes with potential downsides, doesn't it?
Always.
What does the source highlight as the main risks specific to holding gold in an IRA?
The source details two primary risks you really need to understand. First, there's market fluctuation. Gold prices can be quite volatile.
Yeah, we see that sometimes.
Right. Influenced by global economic health, geopolitical stability, simple supply and demand. The source gives the example that gold often acts as a safe haven, meaning its price might rise during recessions or uncertainty, as investors flee maybe riskier assets like stocks.
Okay.
Conversely, in a strong economy, money might move out of gold and into investments offering potentially higher returns. So volatility is a key risk. Prices can swing.
And the second risk?
The second risk is the potential for loss of investment value. I mean, while gold is historically seen as a pretty stable store of value over the long term, its price can decline.
Sure.
If you need to sell your gold assets during a downturn in the market, well, you could receive less than you initially paid for them. That's a real risk.
So volatility and the risk of selling at a loss. Key considerations. The source doesn't just list risks, though. It also talks about mitigating them. What's the core strategy it emphasizes for dealing with these?
Diversification. The source places significant emphasis on it.
The old classic.
The classic, exactly. It argues that spreading your investments across different asset classes is really the fundamental way to reduce overall portfolio risk.
Makes sense. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Precisely. This helps cushion the impact if one particular asset class performs poorly. The source even includes that classic quote from Harry Markowitz.
Oh, yeah.
Diversification is the only free lunch in investing. By spreading your investments, you can reduce risk without necessarily sacrificing returns.
Nice.
And it broadens the discussion beyond just gold within the IRA. It lists other assets for overall diversification.
Like what?
Other precious metals, silver, platinum, palladium. It notes their different industrial uses like silver and electronics or solar, platinum, palladium, and catalytic converters, which adds another layer of diversification.
Oh, interesting point. Different demand drivers.
Exactly. Also real estate through rental properties, commercial real estate, or REITs. It mentions potential benefits like steady income, long-term appreciation, and acting as a hedge against inflation.
Okay.
And of course, the traditional cornerstones, stocks and bonds. Stocks for growth potential, bonds for stability and income. Combining them helps balance things out.
So the material really drives home that gold in an IRA, if you choose to have one, is just one piece of a much larger diversified puzzle.
Absolutely. That's the main message regarding risk mitigation.
It sounds like the source is saying, okay, understand the specific rules for gold, definitely, but don't lose sight of the forest for the trees. The real goal is broad diversification.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So as the source wraps up, what are its key recommendations for someone maybe considering this path?
Well, the recommendations are quite practical and very compliance-focused.
Yeah.
The first is absolute adherence to the IRS guidelines we've been discussing.
The purity, the storage.
Exactly. Only investing in approved forms and purities and using an IRS-approved depository for storage. Non-negotiable.
Right.
The source points out that working with a reputable Gold IRA company is pretty essential to navigate these requirements and just stay compliant.
Makes sense, dealing with specialized rules.
And it also explicitly warns about the penalty for noncompliance. If you hold unapproved items and the IRS finds out, you could face taxes and penalties.
Ouch. Okay.
The second key recommendation is seeking professional financial advice.
Always good advice.
Absolutely. The source strongly advises consulting a qualified financial advisor, someone who can help you understand how a Gold IRA or any other investment choice fits into your complete long-term financial strategy. It's not a decision to make in isolation.
Wow, okay. This deep dive, based on your source material, really puts Gold IRAs in a specific light. It's definitely not just buying some shiny metal.
Not at all.
It's navigating a very defined regulatory space right down to the purity levels and that mandatory storage requirement. It truly clarifies the boundaries, no jewelry allowed.
Exactly. The core message from the source is that a Gold IRA is a highly specific investment tool. It's for retirement, designed for particular types of physical precious metals, and governed by these strict IRS rules form, purity, storage. It's a tool for financial strategy, definitely not for acquiring personal items.
Got it.
And if we zoom out to the bigger picture the source paints, it emphasizes that while these specific rules for gold and storage are crucial within the Gold IRA itself,
Yeah.
The overarching principle of diversification across many different asset classes is arguably the most vital component for building a resilient financial future.
So the details matter, but the big picture matters more.
That's a good way to put it. And this raises kind of an interesting thought, just drawing from the material. How might the very act of understanding these tight, specific rules for one asset class, like gold, how might that influence the way you think about the importance of structure and careful selection across all the different pieces of your diversified portfolio?
Huh. That's a powerful question to leave with. Like, does focusing on the strict rules here make you more disciplined elsewhere?
Maybe. Something to think about.
Indeed. Well, thank you for bringing such a clear and insightful source for this deep dive. It's been incredibly clarifying.
Glad to discuss it.
And for all of you listening, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and we'll be back with another deep dive soon.